Hello my quilting family. Today we do minis. These are my favorite. The minis are they're always so darling and so cute and just they're so much fun. Now we're going to we split how we do minis in two different sections. One we're going to do paper piecing, and today we're going to do just the ordinary piecing of a mini. And we're going to try and give you some little tips and tricks on how to piece these minis. So here we go. Why don't we come a little closer and I'll show you how this is done. Okay, so I've just pulled out some 2-inch strips, random lengths. I think they're going to be well more than long enough for this project. So I pulled out some 2-inch strips in both the blue and the white. And so we're just going to fold them over. And I'm going to do 4 at a time. Now the reason I'm working with 2-inch strips, even though we're making a 3.5-inch mini, is we need the extra fabric for the triangles, right? I mean, and we're just cutting them a little bit, 1/2 inch bigger. And I'll put all the cutting instructions and all this down in the show notes below. So here we go. So there is our triangles, because I've got 2 of each and we're going to make them 2 at a time. So now, I have the wrong foot on. Okay. My little high-tech bag of feet out. And here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay. We always do this, don't we? Okay. Let me just switch over my feet. Now, I'm pretty confident to sew across these. So what I'm going to do, but you can mark them if you'd like, right? So we're basically going to put them here, and we're not sewing down the center. We're going to sew 2 on either side, right? So I guess I should mark that, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Because there we go. We're going to draw this line on either side, and that's going to give us our good 1/4 inch or 1.5 inch triangle. We're making them 2 at a time. Okay, and if they're a little bit big, we can trim them down. It's all good. Okay, now, so there is our sew lines. Okay, so now I'm just going to put this under and find my foot pedal because it's across the room already today. I'm just going to sew, just kissing that triangle a bit. Just a little bit on the inside of that line, because I want to make sure I have enough on the triangle to be able to trim it down to 1.5 inches. Okay. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut between those lines, and both of them. And while I have it in my hand, I'm going to trim off my dog ears before I do anything else. Right? There. There we go. So now we're going to see whether or not we've got. So I'm going to finger press this off to the dark and do all 4. Give it a quick trim. You don't have to press these out right away. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to make sure they're trimmed up. So as you're trimming them, get the part of the ruler that has the really fine marks, and this is where you're going to find most success. So you're going to try and put this on the 45-degree line, and you're just going to trim just ever so little off of each one, and then give it a spin, and go the other direction. And you want to line all this up at the 1.5 inch line, because you want that to be a perfect 1/2 inch. So I'll trim the rest of these, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to assemble the rest. Okay, now that we've trimmed up all our triangles, we're just going to lay them around our block. And one of the things that was asked, and I also trimmed up the center blocks. I got 1.5 inch squares of white and that blue. Okay, now one of the things that was asked of us is which way do the triangles need to lay. Okay, now on the block that I made, right, they all of them lay the same direction. They all go the same way. The stars all spin the same. Now, it's up to you how you want to put your stars together, whether you want them all tilted in one direction and then tilted in the other. Personally, I prefer if they are all tilted in one direction as they go around, but you can do whatever you want to do. This is a block where you do you the best. So, now, one of the other things when you're doing mini piecing is you want to be careful you don't put your seam, your 1/4 inch seam is not too fat. And that your scale of your pattern is pretty small, right? So that you know, like the blue here is very, very tiny. The white has a larger scale, but it is such a tiny little black marking that goes through here. It works. It does work. So let's get this together. Now I'm just going to web this together. Now, just do a very scant 1/4 inch. And we're just doing a quick web. Okay, and that's not webbing. Why is that? There it is. Okay. Now we get the next one done on. And basically I'm webbing this little mini block together. So here we go. And you can check to make sure your stars are all going the right direction, right? So all the points on your star, if you want. I find webbing keeps everything in the right spot. And I don't find that I'm ripping as often. So that's why I like to web my blocks, even my minis. So, but if this doesn't work for you and some other way works good for you, that's the way you should use it. Okay, so now I just have this. Now I'm going to take the outside bits. I'm going to point them, I'm going to finger press them away from the center. Now for the middle block, I'm pointing those triangles towards the center. So what happens now is I finger press these in opposite directions. So these are going in, these are going out. So they will nest. Now some people, what they find, they get a little bit more wiggle room when they're doing mini if they press open. And that's true. You can also use starch if you're finding your block you're having problems meeting points. You could also use starch before you cut, before you do any trimming, especially if you're using scraps. Okay, and there we go. There. And the last little bit. Now, the last thing I do, where's that? That one little thread I forgot to cut. Okay, now the last thing I do is I make sure all my points are the right direction. Everything, all the seams are nested beautifully. Then I spin the back seams. And I spin them in opposite directions. So this mini now will lie really, really flat. And when I press this open with an iron, Then I'm going to have a perfect little block, just like this. Ta-da! So anyways, that's what I mean by spinning your back. Your back seams have to be just, once you do this a couple of times, then this spinning your back just works out perfectly. Okay, let's see what else I've got for you today. Okay, so here's our little mini. So cute, so adorable, and it really does, this is a really good scrap buster for, you know, like you don't have to make an entire quilt like this. You can just make a few feature blocks or whatever that are in minis, or you can grow them in size or whatever. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you about this, I made a bunch of different little blocks, art blocks this week too, right? Just to go through and use up my fabric, you know, to make these charity quilts. So the first block I want to show you is a leftover periwinkle block. Now I added a 2.5 inch strip because this block, the periwinkle block without the strip is 8.5 inches. So adding a 2.5 inch strip all the way around added an additional 4.5 inches to this block. So now this block measures 12.5 inches. So it'll fit beautifully in with the right color palette in with our blue and white quilts. Now I also finished some other quilts. So when we were talking about these unused blocks or the orphan blocks and what to do with them, sometimes you just have to start sewing them together and making it happen. So what I did is, these are orphan blocks. This is an orphan block. This is a 9 patch from the Sister's Choice block. But even this applique block, you remember the blue flame from Changing One Element, that block? This is sewn on just to give this block some different look, striking look. And yes, I made 2 of them, and with the second one, I actually used some additional minis. So this kind of looks really cute all of a sudden. We're starting to get some different variety going on. The other thing you can do with your orphan blocks is you can size them the same, sew them together, and put them in a modified log cabin. So what happens is, this little princess here is standing, and there's, you know, the blue fortress around her on the one side, and she's got, like, you know, these bordered blocks and a little 4-patch. I mean, it looks cute. It'll work. It'll work. Sometimes too, you have to take those little mini pinwheels and do the same thing with them. This will be a darling addition to this Friendship Star block because it's the right palette, right? And it also has some of the fabric that's already in the block. The other thing I did is I made some of these blocks. Is I decided I was going to start adding some different colors and dimensions, and you can see I added a coping strip, what we call a coping strip, in around here, and then sized the block down to 12.5 inches unfinished, right? So now when it finishes in the quilt, it will finish at 12 inches square. And we made a few of them because we had lots of them to do. Now, this is from the Sister's Choice blocks where you do, I'll show you the Sister's Choice block in another one, but these little triangles are all from that. So here we go, we've got quite a few of these, and yes, we did finish our Sister's Choice, and my friend, hopefully my friend likes it. Now, the other thing we did is all of a sudden I had a bunch of little pinwheels. And I was like, I don't remember making little pinwheels, but here they are. So some of them are from different little things that we sewed together. Some of them are pieced, like they're pieced blocks, like string blocks. So what you can do is just add them in for a different effect. And I made a couple of them. All right. Now, I found my grandmother's flowers, and I made applique blocks. But those blocks were not big enough to go into this quilt. So again, a coping strip. Sometimes that's all you need is when you're trying to move out your orphan blocks as a coping strip. Go with a simple plan, right? And we made the tulip from my grandmother's tulips. And we made this. Now these are just sewn on, and then I embroidered stitch, blanket stitch around them, just to cover up any oopses that I made sewing them on. And the last one. Now here was another one that we had to just add a coping strip and a few little blocks just to beef it out. This is my Halloween witches that are going into this child's quilt. And they're cute witches. They're not scary witches. So a kid will love these. And we finished beefing out the half square rectangles that I sewed wrong. So we just put two sides of a coping strip to make it big enough. So it'll give some different sparkle to the quilt, the quilts we're making. There'll be a lot of art blocks in these quilts. That'll be okay. And the last one. And some of the other art blocks that I've seen online, and I've been kind of watching some of the different people, and I was just amazed at the stuff they make. My art blocks aren't probably as intuitive as some of theirs, but I think they're kind of cute. So here we have little flowers in a pot over a moon. And this sky background is a Van Gogh print, so it's just cute. Just cute. And we have a black kitty cat in a moon with some very wild psychedelic strips behind it. And we have a flower vase. And we have a butterfly. Now all of these circles are cut out. So basically once you do the circle porthole, you end up with a circle. Well, then you also have interfacing the same size. So you can keep using circle after circle after circle, and then until they start getting smaller and smaller. But here's a butterfly. And here's a red cat with that psychedelic print. This circle here comes from this hole here. Okay, so basically you're using different elements to create different blocks. And we have a red cat. And we have a portrait and tulips. Tulips in a jar. So I thought that was kind of a cute way of doing things. And my attempt at a bird with the moon flight or whatever, but this is my attempt at a bird. In Tucson, we have little quail with a little comb, and I thought, well, we'll try and make a quail, a psychedelic colored quail. We also have just big petals and flowers. Right now, this center was mostly, like on the fabric itself, it was mostly blue, but it had big orange and yellowy, goldy blotches. Well, we tried to put that blotch in the middle. And we have hexie in the middle. And this is all just applique on with interfacing. And I decided we're going to do some 3 circles together in a block with a neutral background, and see how that would work out. And see, that's basically your interfacing method of applique. And then we decided, let's draw some lines. So I decided we would make a really art piece, and we put 2 circles together. Then we cut a strip, 1-inch strip, and then we sewed it to either side of this 2-piece. And so the block now looks like, I'll get my cameraman to hold that up. It doesn't change the size of the block, because that's where that line through is where our 1-inch strip goes through. Because there's a 1/4-inch seam on either side, so it's only 1/2 inch here, but it doesn't change stuff. And my last attempt at a bird. So I know these are a lot of fun to do. But next week we're going to show how to do the minis on paper piecing, and I've got a little different idea about how to do them this time. And we're going to show you some more orphan blocks and what we did with them and how we arranged them and put them together so that they would work in a quilt. So I would love to see you back next time. This has been so much fun, this adventure. And then once we do these, the second mini, we're going to do an aftermath, and then we're going to start some free motion quilting to get the UFOs in my Area 51 out before I have more UFOs in my age. So, okay, we'll see you back next week. Have a great day. Bye. If you have questions about what you saw in this video, or you have ideas for content or something you want to see us do, please put those comments in the description below. But also, while you're there, like, share, and subscribe with your friends. That would really help us out. Okay, I want to thank you and have a great day.